and this is going to be a hard thing to stay in place. Nah, it's all right. I'm good. All right. Hi, I'm Mara Lubell. I'm the new head of brand at Resemble. I've been in I've been in branding and design for about the last, I'm not going to say how many years, but the last 10 of which has been mostly in B2B tech, and the last 7 of that probably in voice AI. I've been on the foundational side and the application side with companies like DeepGram and in health tech companies like Infinitus, and now at Resemble. Before I get started, I have a little question. Is everybody here from New York, like live and work in New York? Or is there anybody here that's not, like outside the suburbs, like myself? A little bit. Okay. Has anybody here ever been to a restaurant called Moe's? It's a fast food Mexican restaurant. Yeah, okay. Does anybody know what they say when you walk in the door? So when you walk in the door at Moe's, the first thing that happens is everyone behind the counter yells, "Welcome to Moe's!" Really, really loud, in your face. Like you feel it as soon as you walk in the door, right? And you go in and you would notice it if it was missing. It's part of the experience of being there. It's my 12-year-old's favorite place to eat. He loves it. And the other day, my husband was gonna be late for work and he's like, "Oh, you guys are on your own for dinner." And before I can even get the suggestion out, I hear this little voice from down the hall going, "Welcome to Moe's!" Like my kid is already claiming where he wants to go for dinner. But he didn't say, "Hey mom, can we go to Moe's?" He yelled, "Welcome to Moe's!" That way, right? It's this very specific thing that's very unique to that restaurant. And do you know what that is? That's brand experience, all right? I mean, it's just a voice, right? But it's distinctive, if not more so than anything else, as much as the logo, the colors, the website, even the food. It's the voice that you hear when you walk in that space is part of the experience, right? How consistent it is, how well it's controlled over every greeting. That's not just for restaurants, right? So one visit to Moe's, I went in and I was at the checkout, and at the end I said to the kid, "Thank you," and he said, "My pleasure." And it threw me off for a second, and I'll tell you why. Now, I've spent too much time in the suburbs now. My pleasure, that robotic way of speaking, that's Chick-fil-A, right? Whenever you check out at Chick-fil-A, "My pleasure, my pleasure." It's this very robotic, automated thing, but they're all kind of required to say it and to speak that way, right? So, but that's not Moe's vibe. Moe's has their own distinct vibe. And this concept, this idea of voice as a brand experience isn't exclusive to restaurants. Because if your company uses voice AI or will use voice AI or is building voice AI, brand is in your wheelhouse, all right? And I'm not talking about a tagline or what the voice says or what celebrity it's trying to sound like. I'm talking about how it feels and how it behaves and how well it adapts to different scenarios and customers and needs, and whether it feels like the company it's representing. So that's what marketing and CX teams are going to be making decisions about, and the platform technical leaders choose to recommend is either give them that flexibility or control, or it's not. All right. See, on the enterprise side, marketing doesn't know what your shortlisted vendors are capable of, and CX doesn't know what's technically feasible. So legal doesn't even know what the ramifications are completely yet. But you do, or you will in the next 15 minutes or so. This makes you the person in the room who can put all of those needs together to make one informed decision. And that's a different kind of role than just checking boxes on a requirements doc. So the people that I talk to that are in that role of selecting voice vendors haven't fully stepped into the concept of looking at voice as a part of the brand, as representative of the company. Not because they can't, or because they don't want to, because nobody has framed the conversation that way. So I can tell some people are skeptical or they're like, okay, brand lady, like move it along. But I promise you, at the end of this, you will be able to see how these things weave together and how important they are and how this is an actual opportunity for technical leaders to take a step up into a more strategic role conversation for the business. So here's what we're talking about. People talk about brand like it's just a logo or ads or something, but what it really is trust. Trust that the people interacting with your company, the experience that they have is as good or better than the one they were expecting to have. And all of those things, the logo, the taglines, the website, the voices, all of those things together contribute to that expectation. So when a platform gets chosen on technical fit alone, the experience up front isn't necessarily, it's not exactly a technical failure, it's a trust failure. And trust is harder to recover. So I'll give you an example. I worked with a client that built voice AI agents, right? They performed B2B transaction calls on behalf of their clients. The voice they chose for those calls was intentionally a little robotic. Think like the Chick-fil-A, my pleasure, right? It was fast, it was efficient, it was a little bit warm, friendly, but not enough so that anyone picking up the call was gonna wanna have a conversation with it, right? Which was perfect for the use case. Calls were quick, they moved swiftly, information was collected faster, clients were happy, and it worked. Then one client wanted to expand into customer-facing use case. And think about that for just a second. So you've got the same platform, the same voice, the same technology that had been working perfectly. Now they updated the conversation design, they did everything they were supposed to do, but what's the problem? So the problem is it's a totally different experience. When you see it play out, it doesn't look like a setup for failure. It feels like a scope expansion, which is a great problem to have, right? But nobody stops to ask whether a voice that works for B2B calls works for a completely different audience. And when the feedback comes, it's not exactly a dumpster fire. The speed is fine, the latency is fine, but the voice just feels wrong, right? Cold. And once a customer feels that, once they feel like they're talking to something that doesn't understand them, trust erodes. And recovering that trust, costs more than asking one simple question up front would have. Who is this voice talking to, and what do they need to feel? And it could save everyone some headache and some scrambling to fix an experience. So is that it? Is it just how real a voice sounds or how empathetic it sounds? Of course not, as we've all heard today. It's also about friction. Think about every voice interaction that asks you to verify who you are. Please state your account number. Can you confirm your date of birth? Please repeat that. Lather, rinse, repeat. You know that moment where you've already given your account number and then an agent picks up and asks you to repeat it again? That moment right there, that's friction. And friction is a trust tax. Every one of those moments is a trust tax. It reminds the customer that they're talking to a system, and that system says, it doesn't know you. It doesn't remember you. It's not built for you, right? Every one of those moments is a small withdrawal from a little trust account. The platforms that are thinking ahead and building authentication into the voice layer itself, tokens, voice biometrics, they're reducing friction dramatically. Less interruption, less repetition. Just a conversation that feels more natural and more secure at the same time. So obviously what we're talking about here is curating a feeling, but it's also a strategic platform decision. So when you evaluate whether a vendor supports biometrics or token-based authentication, you're not just evaluating a feature, you're evaluating whether the platform can build an experience that builds trust at scale. So the builders who understand that are creating something different, and the buyers who understand it are evaluating differently. And whichever side of that conversation you're on, you're already ahead. So let's say everything goes right. It's perfect. The experience is seamless. Trust is built. The customer loves it. It feels right for the brand. The voice is on brand. We're done, right? Not quite. Here's the thing. The more distinctive the voice becomes, the more the customer trusts it. The more the customer trusts it, the more valuable it is. The more valuable it is, the more somebody might want to use it without your permission. What happens when someone replicates that experience and uses it without your knowledge? What happens when your voice gets cloned and someone produces something that sounds like your brand, saying something your company never said? Who finds out first? Who has to explain it? Who has to prove it didn't come from you? Who's the human on the hook? Yeah, I owe her $1. Probably your legal and technical team. Sorry, if you were here for this morning's session, that would make more sense. But in this moment, the technical leader's job is to defend that decision that was made. So what security measures were taken? What does the platform provide? Can we prove provenance? What did and didn't come from us? Watermarking, explainability, these aren't exotic features. They're the difference between being able to defend your brand and not. And right now, in most evaluations, nobody knows to ask for them, except you. Nobody handed you a brief that says protect the brand, right? To protect the brand voice or make sure the experience builds trust. That's not in your job description, but the platform decision is. And embedded in that decision are all these little questions that we've been talking about. And the technical leaders who see that, the ones who show up to the vendor conversation with these questions aren't just making a better technical recommendation, they're becoming the person in the room who thought of the things that nobody else did, right? That's a different kind of partner. And it opens up a different kind of conversation with the teams around you. So here's my framework. Everybody's got a framework. Here's mine, all right? These are the topics that aren't in most RFPs. The first is about experience, not just whether the voice works, but whether the platform gives your marketing and CX teams the flexibility and control to make it right for every audience and every context. The second is about protection, right? Not just security in the traditional sense or your SOC 2 compliance, what have you, but the ability to prove what did and didn't come from you, right? To defend your brand voice as the asset it is. These aren't marketing questions. These are yours now. So before you close out an evaluation process, these are the 3 conversations I want you to have. First, sit down with your marketing and CX teams and ask them, what does this voice need to feel like and for whom? Not what does it need to say or who does it need to sound like, but what does it need to feel like, right? And I'm directing mostly this towards the enterprise folks, but for those of you building voice also, it's a great question to have with your enterprise clients, right? Typically when you ask this question, people will start with words like professional or friendly, and that's not wrong, but try to push past them, right? Those are adjectives that describe how the agent sounds, right? We're talking about how does the customer feel in this, and what you're really trying to get to is what do they need to feel in order to trust the next thing the voice says? And that's a different question. And the answer is obviously going to vary depending on who they are and what they're trying to achieve and what they are trying to get out of it or walk away with. But the platform chosen either gives you that flexibility to adapt to those scenarios or it doesn't. Second, get legal in the room. Ask what protecting our voice IP actually requires. Most legal teams haven't even been asked this yet, which means the conversation is going to be new to them too, and that's okay. You're not walking into that conversation with the answers. This is a fact-finding mission. So you want to know, what are we exposed to if something that sounds like us surfaces somewhere that we didn't put it? What would we need to be able to prove? The conversation that is going to shape what you ask vendors too. And it's going to make legal feel like you thought of them before problems arise. Good relationship building. So third, go back to your shortlisted vendors and have a conversation. Ask them directly, how do you handle experience flexibility? What can we control? How can we reduce friction? How do you handle voice provenance? and then just see where the conversation goes. It shouldn't be a box checking exercise, it should be a strategy conversation. And the vendors who are thinking about their platforms in this context will lean into that conversation. And the ones that aren't, it's okay, you just know where you need to add to your stack. That conversation, before you've signed anything, tells you a lot about what the partnership looks like too. So the conversations you have today are going to look a little different than they did before, not because the technical requirements changed, those obviously still matter a lot. But now you're asking questions that cross into experience and provenance in a way that most of your peers aren't. And that makes you more valuable to every team involved. Marketing, CX, legal, leadership, they all have a stake in this. You're just the one that understands it end to end. And that's not a small thing. So whether you're evaluating voice platforms or building them, this is the conversation the market is moving towards. The buyers are getting more sophisticated. The questions are getting sharper. The people in this room are already ahead. Thank you so much for your time. Oh, that's where you can find me.